Nevjerovatne 3 sedmice protesta u Iranu tokom kojih je poginulo najmanje 2500 ljudi, uključujući 12 djece. Svijet je gledao i sa skoro strahom očekivao intervenciju Donalda Trumpa koja bi ove proteste pretvorila u regionalni rat. A ovako je to izgledalo i ove sedmice. Donald Trump i dalje ne odustaje od ideje da bi Sjedinjene države trebale kontrolisati Grenland, makar i silom, što je izazvalo zabrinutost među evropskim liderima i NATO članicama. Francuska je već poslala svoju vojsku na ostrvo, a carine svima koji se ne slažu s njegovim željama. Ko je to? Favorit u Venezueli, a ko je Trampov favorit da vlada Venezuelom? Machado ili Rodriguez? O svjetskim temama sa mnom je večeras novinarka Wendy Cole. Umjetna inteligencija u visokorizičnim pregovorima, sekretar odbrane Sjedinjenih Američkih Država Pete Hegseth najavio je da će Elon Muskov AI chatbox Grok uskoro biti integrisan u Pentagon zajedno sa Googleovim generativnim AI sistemom. Ko je pametniji, mi ili kompjuter? Moj gost je ekspert za korištenje umjetne inteligencije u pregovorima, Mustafa Marvan. Ovo je Puls planete, Newsmax Balkans, ja sam Ika Ferer-Gotić. Situacija u Iranu ove sedmice prijetila je širim regionalnim ratom, kolapsom regionalne, ali i svjetske sigurnosti. Prekinut je kontakt između Washingtona i Teherana ove sedmice. Protesti zbog ekonomske krize i teokratske vlasti izazvali su masovna hapšenja, smrtne kazne. Iranska državna televizija je po prvi put priznala da je broj poginulih znatno veći od dosadašnjih procjena. Međunarodna zajednica apeluje na hitnu intervenciju, dok američki predsjednik ove sedmice je prijetio vojnom operacijom protiv iranskog režima. 26-godišnji mladić Erfan Soltani osuđen je na vješanje nakon što je prošle sedmice uhapšen tokom protesta u Iranu. Soltaniju nije omogućeno pravo na advokata niti pošteno suđenje. Erfan Soltani trebao je biti pogubljen u srijedu. Njegova porodica apelira na američkog predsjednika Donalda Trumpa da interveniše i spriječi izvršenje. Prije svega, ako želimo nešto učiniti, moramo to učiniti brzo. Žao mi je, ali ako se posao odgodi, moguće je da ni nakon 2 ili 3 mjeseca to neće imati isti učinak. Ako nešto možemo učiniti danas, a uradimo to za 2 do 3 mjeseca, to više neće imati isti efekat. Iranska državna televizija prvi put je zvanično priznala veliki broj poginulih u protestima širom zemlje. Aktivisti upozoravaju da će sudstvo vjerovatno masovno primjenjivati smrtne kazne, dok je broj poginulih prema Agenciji za ljudska prava porastao na 2571, a uhapšeno je više od 18.000 ljudi, uključujući i 12 djece. Protesti su počeli zbog ekonomske krize i nezadovoljstva teokratijom, posebno liderom Hamenejem. Predsjednik Sjedinjenih Američkih Država Donald Trump prijeti vojnom intervencijom ukoliko vlasti Irana nastave represiju. Iran mi je stalno na umu. Kada vidim kakva se smrt tamo dešava, razmišljam o tome. Zato ćemo dobiti tačne podatke. Imaćemo precizne brojke o tome šta se dešava u vezi sa ubistvima demonstranata. Izgleda da je broj stradalih značajan, ali još ne znamo sa sigurnošću. Gospodine predsjedniče, Iran kaže da će uzvratiti u slučaju američkih udara napadima na američke ciljeve na Bliskom istoku. Šta poručujete američkim vojnicima o tome zašto je vrijedno rizika intervenisati u Iranu? Da, Iran je to rekao i prošli put kada sam im uništio nuklearne kapacitete koje više nemaju. Iran je to rekao i tada. Bolje im je da se ponašaju. Da, poruka je da moraju pokazati humanost. Imaju veliki problem i nadam se da neće ubijati ljude. Vrlo brzo ćemo imati izvještaj. Čini mi se da su jako loše se ponašali, ali to još nije potvrđeno. Međunarodna reakcija je snažna. Evropska unija i Velika Britanija pozivaju na dodatni pritisak i sankcije, dok susjedne zemlje poput Turske, Egipta i Saudijske Arabije upozoravaju da bi američka intervencija mogla izazvati rat u regionu. Iran je također zaprijetio da će napasti američke baze u regionu u slučaju napada Sjedinjenih Država. Kontrast između hrabrosti iranskog naroda i brutalnosti njihovog očajnog režima nikada nije bio jasniji.
Gospodine predsjedavajući, direktno smo osudili ovu brutalnost. Sarađujemo sa saveznicima na dodatnim sankcijama i činimo sve što možemo kako bismo zaštitili britanske državljane. Podržavamo stav o Iranu. Režim koji je trajao toliko godina i ubio toliko ljudi ne zaslužuje da postoji. Promjene su neophodne. Promjene su potrebne i ovdje u Evropi. Krvoproliće koje je Rusija započela i koja jedina i dalje podržava mora doći kraju. Iranski narod širom zemlje ponovno traži pravdu i slobodu dok se suočava sa nemilosrdnom represijom. Demonstranti su gađani na neposrednoj blizini, internet je blokiran, stotine tijela nagomilano u bolnicama. Francuska najstrožije osuđuje ovu nasilnu represiju nad mirnim demonstrantima. Demonstracije u Iranu predstavljaju najveći val protesta od islamske revolucije 1979. godine, a režim koristi represiju i smrtne kazne kako bi održao kontrolu. Svim iranskim patriotama poručujem, nastavite proteste, preuzmete svoje institucije ako je moguće i zabilježite imena ubica i zlostavljača koji vas maltretiraju. Ako su brojke tačne, vi ste brutalno zlostavljani. Trenutno čujem 5 različitih skupova podataka. Čujem razne brojke. Pogledajte, jedna smrt je previše, ali čujem i mnogo niže i mnogo više brojke. Ipak kažem, sačuvajte njihova imena, jer će platiti veoma visoku cijenu. State Department je naveo da američki državljani trebaju napustiti Iran iako je sigurno razmotriti odlazak kopnom prema Armeniji ili Turskoj. Iranski ministar vanjskih poslova Arakči optužio je Sjedinjene Američke Države i Izrael za podsticanje protesta u Iranu. Uložio formalnu pritužbu Ujedinjenim nacijama zbog izjava američkog predsjednika Donalda Trumpa. Arakči je rekao da je narod odlučan u odbrani suvereniteta dok su Ujedinjeni Arapski Emirati pozvali na stalnu koordinaciju. I koji je to bio cilj? Cilj je bio da se poveća broj poginulih na protestima. Zašto? Zato što je gospodin Trump, predsjednik Amerike, rekao da će ako ljudi budu ubijani, doći i intervenisati. Direktni kontakti između visokih zvaničnika Sjedinjenih Američkih Država i Irana prekinuti su, dok rastu tenzije zbog mogućih vojnih udara. Ambasada Indije u Teheranu pozvala je i svoje državljane da napuste zemlju odmah. Ika Ferrer Gotić, Newsmax, Balkans.
Tokom provladinih protesta u Teheranu, iranska državna televizija prikazala je transparent na kojem je upućena prijetnja američkom predsjedniku Donaldu Trumpu, emitirajući njegovu fotografiju s atentata tokom predizbornog skupa 2024. godine uz poruke ovaj put metak neće promašiti. Prijetnja dolazi u trenutku pojačanih tenzija između Amerike i Irana, dok prorežimski demonstranti u Teheranu uzvikuju smrt Americi i izražavaju odanost Ajatolahu Hameneju unatoč državnim blokadama medija i prethodnim neuspjelim planovima atentata na Trumpa. A Iran je u četvrtak rano ujutro izdao i naredbu o zatvaranju svog zračnog prostora bez ikakvog objašnjenja. Ova odluka dolazi u trenutku pojačanih tenzija nakon krvavog gušenja protesta širom zemlje, dok raste zabrinutost zbog moguće američke vojne reakcije još u četvrtak. Zatvaranje zračnog prostora dodatno je pogoršalo već nestabilnu situaciju u regiji, izazivajući strahovanja od daljnjih sukoba, potencijalnih posljedica po civilni zračni saobraćaj, ali i regionalnu sigurnost. Odluka je odmah izazvala međunarodnu pažnju, ali i diplomatsku zabrinutost. As Iran reels from its deadliest protests in years, the world watches a volatile mix of domestic unrest and international pressure. Civilians face heavy crackdowns, security forces report rising casualties, and Tehran blames foreign interference. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump threats of intervention, calls for restraint, leave both Iranians and global actors uncertain about what could really come next. In a region already fraught with tension, the stakes are really high. Any misstep could spark broader conflict, regional conflict, while inaction risks further human suffering. I have Wendy Kaur, who's joining me from Toronto in these moments. Wendy, welcome to Newsmax Balkans, and thank you for joining.
Thank you, Ika, for having me.
With reported deaths of thousands of protesters, how should the international community really balance pressure on Tehran with the risk of escalating violence, Wendy? And how do we comment on what's been going on in Iran in the past 2.5, 3 weeks now?
Well, when we talk about the U.S., for example, they're obviously using external pressure. We know that President Trump's threats seem to be having an effect. The rest of the West is calling more so on diplomacy so as not to, kind of back Iran into a corner. It's a kind of balancing act with the West. We need to kind of temper President Trump's responses to kind of offset Trump's stance. I mean, the G7 countries' foreign ministers, they released a statement, quite a strong statement yesterday, opposing the intensification of the Iranian authorities and the crackdown of dissent. So that statement was really focused on the people of Iran and what they've been going through for the past, now we're in its third week. Countries in the region, we know that Saudi Arabia has said that airspace will not be used in case the U.S. does try to strike. But I'm sure that especially countries in the region, they're using internal dialogue and diplomacy so that there is stability. So it's this kind of diplomatic strategy, I think, on both ends of the spectrum. And it's kind of to tone down the pressure, I think, from Trump.
All right, Wendy, so how credible are Iranian claims that foreign actors are fueling unrest, and how does this really shape U.S. policy options?
Well, I mean, Armed Forces Chief of Staff, Abraham Mousavi in Iran, he said on Wednesday that Iran has never faced this volume of destruction. And he's blaming foreign countries as if this is something that's happening to them. I think Iran needs any kind of external justification to, justify this crackdown. In this case, it's the U.S. and Israel. I think that, they're accusing U.S. and Israel of fomenting unrest carried out by what it calls armed terrorists. I think the world can kind of see through this, and it's a justification for any kind of crackdown on dissent that's happening, and it's a blame tactic used by the Iranian regime, and it's not new.
And we know now from President Trump that he said that he will not intervene right now. But if the U.S. intervenes, even limitedly, what safeguards exist to really protect the civilians and prevent a wider Middle East conflict?
I honestly don't think the U.S. government is thinking about that. I think that would come down to international humanitarian law and diplomatic efforts and deterrence. I mean, there is a U.S. military policy, I'm sure, where, the Department of Defense, they do have to prioritize protection when they conduct any kind of military operation. And they would have to investigate any incidents involving casualties, and they would have to acknowledge responsibility. But I think the U.S. is going to cross that bridge when they get to it.
We've seen similarities with Venezuela. Let's talk about Venezuela, Wendy. So the U.S. military extraction, if we can call it that, of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has sent really shockwaves through Americas and exposing Canada's, where you are right now, vulnerability in a continent dominated by American power, really. Ottawa's measured, cautious response highlights the delicate balancing act of middle powers. Now we see uphold international law and democratic values or safeguard economic and strategic interests. Now with Venezuela's oil, U.S. trade leverage, and Trump's unpredictable interventionist policies at play, Canada faces a stark question: how to maintain sovereignty and influence while navigating the shadow of its power neighbor. Now, the Maduro crisis really serves as both a warning, as a test for Canada's foreign policy and identity. How do we balance those things?
So I think annexation of Canada, despite President Trump's rhetoric that he doesn't need anything from Canada, I think it's an extreme situation. But at the same time, it does sound an alarm, according to the experts that I've spoken to. President Trump has made it, no secret that he wants to be an original hegemony. There's talk of the Monroe Doctrine. He wants us to be the 51st state. And the thing is, we will always be dependent on the United States because of the sheer size of their economy and also geographical proximity. It does put Canada in a difficult position. And the thing is, President Trump's dominance over the continent is undeniable. That's why we saw President Carney's kind of tepid response to the illegal capture of President Maduro, because we do not want to anger Trump. We had a turbulent year last year with trade tensions, and we know that there's a Kuzma review coming up in the spring, and so our stance has been to kind of temper our response because of how it can affect us economically.
We don't want to anger President Trump. There's so many leaders in the world right now saying that exact thing. Now, does Canada's muted response to Maduro's capture signal a dangerous precedent of U.S. dominance in the hemisphere? And what does it really mean for Ottawa's autonomy?
It means that we have to diversify. We have to look to other countries for trade. President Carney has just come from China. He signed a landmark deal that what he calls a landmark deal. We have to holding on to our sovereignty is really about economic diversity for Canada. I think other countries will kind of see our example, and that's kind of the way that we have to go.
I want to shift our focus to Gaza, to Palestine as well. Why has Gaza disappeared from headlines all around the world? Yes, we see all these new headlines coming up, and we see now the Gaza plan aimed at disarming Hamas and establishing a technocratic Palestinian administration. Reality on the ground tells a really harsher story, Wendy. Now, Israeli attacks continue amid an ongoing humanitarian catastrophe. If we can call it catastrophe, it is genocide, with thousands of civilians killed, many more displaced, and the numbers could be even higher than we think, that we know. And actions widely described as, just like I said, genocidal. Meanwhile, the promised reconstruction and aid deliveries remain really insufficient, leaving Gazans and Gaza in ruins. What can we say when it comes to Palestinians? What can we say when it comes to UN resolutions that really have no effect, regardless of harsh language that's been used during Security Council in New York?
Just last week, it was reported that some outlets that Israeli strikes across Gaza killed at least 14 people. This ceasefire agreement is kind of the beginning of the hardship for Gaza. I mean, they've gone through a genocide, but the hardship is kind of beginning now. They're putting up tent cities. Well over 400 people have been killed just since this ceasefire has, supposedly taken effect. The UN, there was a report that came out. It's not being talked about, sadly, in the media. It seems like there's no real effect that's going to come of it, and international pressure has to be kind of on countries who do say that this is a genocide and who want Israel to be held accountable. It really comes down to them, but I mean the UN, it seems like it can only do so much.
What does it really tell us about international law and Roman Statute as a framework of International Criminal Court when we see that people, even like Francesca Albanese, are being sanctioned by the US and her reports have little to no effect whatsoever when it comes to bigger powers really doing something on the ground? What does that really tell us about international law and diplomacy at large?
It tells us that international law is almost an ideal. It's something to strive for. It's something that is not going to be necessarily put into practice. It would be if we were living in an ideal world. Unfortunately, when you have superpowers like the United States and like Israel, they can push their own agenda, and sadly, the world is kind of becoming immune to this, which is a sad thing. I mean, we've seen the effects on social media. You would think that would be, something that kind of would mobilize the world, and it has for citizens to a certain extent. But I think a lot of countries just feel like their hands are tied because of how, economically tied they are to the United States, and also because of their their military capacity.
What really needs to happen for the airstrikes and the bullying to stop, even though we are, as we say, technically in a ceasefire? We also see big voices like Mark Ruffalo speaking out, losing his job on certain levels as well, but nothing really helps. It looks like there's nothing anyone can do. What really needs to be done more in order to give the Palestinians, so the Palestinians have the life that is with dignity of a human being?
I would just say international pressure.
But we've seen international pressure. There has been international pressure, and nothing really happened. It only got worse. What do you think? Where is diplomacy? Where has diplomacy disappeared?
I think when it comes to Gaza, sadly, there are a different set of rules. It's like the Indigenous community in Canada. There are a different set of rules that go along with that. And I mean, if this was happening in another country, the effect would be different. But sadly, when it comes to Gaza, we've seen this. We've seen this for so many years, for decades, really. And this is, the most devastating effect of it, the genocide. But what can they do? I mean, international pressure. We can only do so much. We can just keep doing that. I just don't see things changing really anytime soon.
I think you're speechless just as much as I am, and just as much as any other journalist is, just as much as any citizen of the world is when it comes to Palestinians. And just like you said, there's a different set of rules for Palestinians. A child in Palestine is not worth as much as a child, for example, in Germany or in Bosnia or in America or in Canada. It's a very sad reality. It's a sad thing to even have to say that out loud, but this is exactly what we're seeing on the ground. And I think the censorship around Gaza should be really already lifted. We're already tired of that. Wendy, just to sum up the world, 2026 started with Venezuela, then it started with Iran. We are mid-January, and look at the world, the chaos. Just like Kaya Kallas said, maybe it's time we start consuming alcohol even more. She said that. What do you think 2026 is a year of? What can we expect if we're already seeing such turbulence in the world just in January? What do you think 2026 will be like?
I am afraid to even ponder that, honestly. Every day. I mean, did we think that, Trump was going to go into Venezuela? A year ago, did we think that Canada's sovereignty would be threatened? I think, forget about 2026. I'm just worried until Trump, as long as Trump is president, I think we have to kind of brace ourselves, hope for the best and just brace ourselves for the worst, honestly.
Wendy, thank you so much for commenting all these topics, various topics tonight. Thank you for being my guest on Planet's Pulse.
Thank you, Ika.
Senat Sjedinjenih Američkih Država odbacio rezoluciju koja je trebala ograničiti ratne ovlasti predsjednika Donalda Trumpa tako što bi ga obavezala da traži odobrenje Kongresa prije daljnjih vojnih akcija. U Venezueli glasanje je završilo nerješeno 50-50, a potpredsjednik J.D. Vance iskoristio je svoj odlučujući glas da odbije mjeru nakon što su se dvojica republikanskih senatora povukla iz podrške pod pritiskom Trumpove administracije. Samo su 3 republikanca glasala s demokratima za ovu rezoluciju. Ovaj ishod jača Trumpovu kontrolu nad strankom, otvara pitanje podjele ratnih ovlasti između izvršne i zakonodavne vlasti.
Look, Americans tonight
Pogledajte, Amerikanci se večeras pitaju kako će platiti svoje račune, a Republikanci u Senatu su se odrekli svoje odgovornosti i rekli: ako želite ići u rat u Južnoj Americi, izvolite. Kako to izgleda? Ono što se večeras dogodilo je karta za još jedan beskrajni rat, jer ovaj Senat pod republikanskim vodstvom nije iskoristio svoju legitimnu i potrebnu oblast.
A Trump je izjavio da bi mogao kazniti zemlje uvođenjem carina ukoliko ne podrže američku kontrolu nad Grenlandom. Trump već mjesecima inzistira da bi Sjedinjene Američke Države trebalo da kontrolišu Grenland, samoupravnu teritoriju koja je dio Kraljevine Danske. Međutim, ranije nije pominjao mogućnost korištenja carina kao sredstva za pritisak. Evropski lideri pridružili su se Danskoj u poruci da Sjedinjene Američke Države ne mogu preuzeti kontrolu nad najvećim ostrvom na svijetu. Danski ministar vanjskih poslova Rasmussen i ministrica vanjskih poslova Motzfeldt zajedno sa danskim ambasadorom Sorensenom sastali su se u srijedu s članovima Arktik Kokosa u Kongresu Sjedinjenih Američkih Država. Predstavljen je dvostranački zakon koji zabranjuje preuzimanje Grenlanda ili teritorija NATO saveznika bez odobrenja. Rasmussen je rekao i dalje da postoji temeljni nesporazum s Trumpom, ali su se dogovorili o radnoj grupi za rješavanje razlika.
Važno je da ljudi u Kongresu i Senatu naglase da, naravno, svi moramo poštovati povelju Ujedinjenih nacija, kao i teritorijalni integritet Kraljevine Danske. Ipak znamo da smo u drugačijoj geopolitičkoj situaciji prije nego 10 godina kada nam je svima bilo jasno da Arktik treba biti područje niskih tenzija i kada su svi koristili dividendu mira. Stvari su se promijenile, ali spremni smo djelovati. Uložili smo gotovo 15 milijardi američkih dolara prošle i pretprošle godine u kapacitete u Grenlandu i spremni smo učiniti više. To se treba raditi s poštovanjem, u bliskoj saradnji s Kraljevinom Danskom i sa Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama, ali unutar okvira NATO-a. Mislim da je jedna od najvažnijih stvari koja proizilazi iz ovog sastanka to što je cijela diskusija zasnovana na pogrešnoj pretpostavci, a to da je Amerika nekako morala kontrolisati Grenland kako bi razvila nacionalne sigurnosne kapacitete za zaštitu naših interesa u Arktiku, koji su stvarni. Imamo bazu na Grenlandu već 75 godina. Imamo ugovor s Danskom i Grenlandom o vanjskim nacionalnim sigurnosnim kapacitetima. Jedna od stvari koju smo naučili na sastanku je da su Danci i Grenlanđani vrlo otvoreni za dodatne nacionalne sigurnosne kapacitete na Grenlandu kako bi se suočili s postojećim rizicima. Ideja je da moramo posjedovati zemlju da bismo zaštitili našu nacionalnu sigurnost, jednostavno besmislena. Ovo je zakon koji zapravo priznaje i naglašava ulogu koju igramo kao NATO država radeći s našim NATO saveznicima, da ne djelujemo protiv NATO saveznika i da za to ne trošimo sredstva. Dakle, ovo je poruka koja je po mom mišljenju vrlo jasna i snažna. I iskreno, nikada nisam mislila da ću morati autorisati i predstaviti ovakav zakon u Kongresu Sjedinjenih Američkih Država.
No ni to nije bilo uspješno. Delegacija Američkog kongresa stigla je u petak u Kopenhagen kako bi pokazala jedinstvo između Washingtona i Danske, dok predsjednik Donald Trump nastavlja zahtijevati preuzimanje Grenlanda. Političari, uključujući senatore, članove predstavničkog doma, sastaju se sa danskim grenlandskim kolegama u parlamentu Danske. Trump je Grenland pretvorio u geopolitički problem s prijedlozima da Sjedinjene Američke Države preuzmu ostrvo čak i silom. Grenland je poluautonomna danska teritorija. Danski ministar vanjskih poslova naglasio je da temeljni nesporazum s Trumpom i dalje traje. Sekretar odbrane Sjedinjenih Američkih Država Pete Hegseth najavio je da će Muskov AI chatbox Grok uskoro biti integrisan u Pentagon zajedno sa Googleovim generativnim AI sistemom kako bi se što više vojnih podataka unijelo u razvijajuće tehnologije. Hegseth je rekao da će najbolji AI modeli na svijetu biti dostupni na svim klasifikovanim i neklasifikovanim mrežama Ministarstva odbrane. Hegseth je najavio i aktiviranje Groka kasnije ovog mjeseca, istakao da će vojni podaci biti dostupni za AI eksploataciju, uključujući i obavještajne baze. Istovremeno tvrdeći da AI u Pentagonu neće biti woke.
Today, we're excited to announce the next frontier AI model company to join GenAI.mil, and that is Grok from xAI, which will go live later this month. Very soon, we will have the world's leading AI models on every unclassified and classified network throughout our department. Long overdue. And that's why today, at my direction, CDAO will exercise its full authority to enforce the DOW data decrees and make all appropriate data available across federated IT systems for AI exploitation. And we will not employ AI models that won't allow you to fight wars. We will judge AI models on this standard alone. Factually accurate, mission relevant, without ideological constraints that limit lawful military applications. Department of War AI will not be woke. It will work for us. We're building war-ready weapons and systems, not chatbots for an Ivy League faculty lounge.
Artificial intelligence is poised to transform the way we negotiate, serving as a backstage coach, analysis, and research assistant. From training caregivers to advising frontline humanitarian negotiators, AI can enhance preparation strategy and real-time feedback. Yet, at the heart of effective negotiation remain human qualities, and those are empathy, critical thinking, and of course, moral judgment that no algorithm can fully really replicate. Now, the challenge lies in leveraging AI to empower negotiators without diminishing the uniquely human skills that foster trust, creativity, and durable agreements. Mustafa Marwan is a negotiation specialist, training consultant, author with over 15 plus years experience designing and delivering negotiation and leadership programs internationally, including for the ICRC. And now he's joining me from Geneva in these moments. Mustafa, welcome to Newsmax Balkans, and thank you for joining.
Hi, Cam. Pleased to be here.
For our audience's information, Mustafa, you and I have met on a forum powered by Harvard University on AI and high-stake negotiations. So many interesting topics that we have covered during that forum, and I want to talk to you about that. Now, your focus is on AI-literate negotiation training. Many negotiators are already using AI quietly to test arguments, draft positions, or even think through strategies, often without training or, guardrails. In sensitive or high-stakes negotiations, that creates real risks alongside real opportunities. Now, how can AI coaches balance offering strategic advice while preserving a negotiator's personal style and, of course, one of the most important things, the ethical judgment?
Yeah, that's a very important question. It's a $1 million question now. So I think this could happen by understanding the role of AI in negotiation. The idea that it is there to amplify your judgment, not replace it. So the way we deal with AI bots or agents is shifting from asking it direct questions, for example, to asking it open-ended questions, promoting a discussion that lead the person to find and augment their own style, because it's very different. It's like being. Sometimes I tell people that it's like the difference between GPS and an experienced taxi driver. So GPS can know a lot of places, but it cannot tell you the streets where there are potholes, the streets where you cannot walk at night after 10 p.m. So the same way your style, tone, and ethics don't come from data. They come from lived experiences. And my advice is to try to stay human while dealing with AI.
And in what ways can AI, Mustafa, help really level the playing field for negotiators with, for example, less experience or fewer resources? And let me ask this question, and this is the question that we all ask ourselves. Who is really smarter? Are the computers smarter or are the humans smarter? It's always humans versus computers. How do we answer that question?
I think there is no comparison because computers are obedient, and it's depends on the questions you are asking them. So if you ask them a smart question, they will give you a smart answer. So who's smarter then? I think the one leading the conversation. It's the same thing. If you are asking them, we call it prompts, the questions you are asking them. So there is a whole 2 chapters in my course about just how to ask correct questions, basically, to the AI. So I would go with humans so far until Elon Musk does something substantially more smart.
One of the things that we talked about during the Harvard University Forum, which I really loved, especially hearing from the great professors from that establishment, is that nothing can really change, nothing really can replace human empathy, nothing can replace moral judgment and ethics, which is one of the core factors in just making those decisions, especially in high-stakes negotiations. We are living already in a time where we can now admit that journalists, politicians, we all use AI and we rely on it quite a lot during the day. How much reliance on AI affect empathy then and emotional intelligence during sensitive negotiations? And can it?
Empathy and emotional intelligence, it can affect it by causing this transactional mindset I talked about, and over-relying on it can lead to losing the genuine elements that differentiates us, that differentiate who we are, making conversations that are superficial. It might be elegant, but it doesn't serve a purpose. It's not genuine. So for me, that's one of the main risks in using AI that we need to work with. My best advice I can give is to treat AI as a junior associate that you are coaching, not the other way around.
That's a good one, actually.
Yeah, meaning that you refine the prompt, refine your questions, have a discussion. If they came up with answers that you think are not complete or doesn't fulfill the nuances that you need, then guide them until they give you the correct answer that you need, instead of getting their answer as if they are a coach and accept their first answer. So that's, I think, the danger with AI. So yeah, that would be my advice.
So it's the good prompts and the correct prompts. And AI is more than just ChatGPT or Grok, of course, especially in high-stakes negotiations. But we have to talk about the rules as well. Now, what safeguards are necessary to prevent AI from promoting overly aggressive or unethical tactics, or even being biased?
Well, being biased is a big problem because it depends on the data that comes, again, as we said, in the AI, in the while feeding it, while learning, while feeding the bots or the agents. So it all starts from designing it, feeding it healthy data from the design, testing it, making sure, provoking it, actually, basically. That's what they do. They provoke it and see if it comes up with unethical things. There is also algorithmic guardrails. But then for the end user, the guardrails also revolve around asking it specific questions that doesn't allow it to fill the gaps. So you need to close the gaps for it and asking it specific questions and then verify it yourself. So they call it the sandwich technique, where in the beginning there is human and at the end there is human. So human always should be in the loop to make sure that these guardrails are protected. But yeah, I wouldn't advise you to trust it blindly by a long shot.
We usually have whole discussions with AI and with the AI chat boxes, and at least I do. I'm sure that a lot of my colleagues do too. Mustafa, just one more question for you. What roles should AI play in multi-party or high-stakes negotiations, and when is human discretion really essential over algorithmic guidance then?
Well, yeah, I mean, discretion is a big thing because you remember there was a case in 2023 where Samsung engineers put confidential data into ChatGPT and it became public. So my rule with confidentiality and discretion is that if you cannot say it in an elevator, then don't paste it into ChatGPT. But when it comes to multi-party or high-stake negotiations, it's a huge operational support layer. It can analyze huge levels of data, simulate the outcomes for you, and it's low-cost training at your fingertips. So it's an amazing thing that saves you time as long as you feed it well, and the output will be the same quality.
And this is a topic that's still being explored by the best in the area out there, especially at Harvard University. I'm looking forward to really continue talking about this topic with you, Mustafa, of course, on and off camera as well. But for now, thank you very much for being part of my show.
Thanks, Aika. My pleasure.
Thank you. This was Mustafa Marwan, who was joining me from Geneva. We spoke about AI in high-stakes negotiations. Stay with us. Neobična situacija u Bijeloj kući. Trump je prihvatio Nobelovu nagradu za mir koju bi je uručila liderka venecuelanske opozicije Maria Corina Machado. Trump je naveo da je riječ o divnom gestu međusobnog poštovanja, te zahvalio Machado na priznanju. Machado je ranije izjavila da je Trumpu predala medalju Nobelove nagrade za mir koju je dobila 2025. godine, ocijenivši taj čin kao priznanje njegovoj posvećenosti slobodi i demokratiji u Venezueli. Nobelov komitet je podsjetio da se nagrada ne može prenositi. I za kraj, visoka predstavnica Europske unije za vanjsku politiku Kaja Kallas izjavila je da je stanje u svijetu toliko ozbiljno da je možda dobar trenutak za konzumiranje alkohola. Rekla je da inače nije ljubitelj pića, ali trenutni događaji u svijetu to opravdavaju, prenosi to politiku. Uzdravlje i do naredne sedmice.